That's the goal here, right? We don't want to waste time or money if you don't have to. So there are some strategic planning things you can do. So that's what we'll get into tonight. Hello, welcome to Prerequisite Planning for PA School. Thank y'all for spending time with me tonight. I know it's also like finals and a lot of stuff going on. This webinar is a little different than the ones we've been doing recently that are live mock interviews or live personal statement editing because it takes a few steps back into prerequisite course planning. If you've already applied to PA school, you probably don't need as much as the other stuff, but it's something that is important. It's something that I've definitely seen and worked with students on a lot in the past 10 years of just looking at options, making choices that help make your path easier. Because that's the goal here, right? Like we don't want to waste time or money if you don't have to. And so there are some strategic planning things you can do to try to help with that. So that's what we'll get into here tonight. I'm Savannah at the PA platform. I've been a dermatology PA now for 11 years. And I went to the University of Georgia and then Augusta University for PA school. And after that, I started helping people get into PA school through the PA platform. My husband was in med school. I was bored at home because he was in class all day and doing whatever they do. And I started blogging and figured out that a lot of people didn't know about the PA profession still, which I knew, but I just always loved helping people plan stuff out. And planning courses was my thing in college. So at UGA, I would have people come over to my apartment and we would sit down and look at their classes, look at where they wanted to go to school, and map out what they needed to take. We would look stuff up. We were picking the right teachers and all this stuff. And I just love that so much, that strategic thing. My husband calls me Planner Perry because it's just something I do. But I miss that. And I've been able to help some of the medical assistants at my work do that. But I want to be able to help you guys too. Okay, more California. So senior, sophomore. Cool. Thank y'all for joining. Okay. Oh, we put a poll up. Look how official. So what year are you? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, already graduated, but doing some prereqs or in high school? I'm very interested in seeing these results. And I will get my presentation up in just a minute. If you're having any issues with the browser or the video quality, refresh, leave and come back, and sometimes that will help. And then we found that Google Chrome does better as well. So, okay, let's see what our results are here. Most people have voted. I'm going to close the poll. So let's see if I can show you results. Not these polls. Oh, amazing. Okay. So already graduated, but doing some prereqs. Awesome. Sophomore, senior, junior, freshman. So this is a very interesting poll because this separation is fairly indicative of when people find out and start pursuing the PA profession. So that's something else y'all could share in the chat is just kind of when you started working towards this. Most people, based on the surveys from PAEA of people who have applied to PA school, find out about the PA profession or start pursuing it either after graduation or during junior and senior year. It's still not really a thing that people are coming into college as much wanting to do, even though I do feel like there is a lot more familiarity with it. So that's interesting. I think I had decided by going into sophomore year, I spent freshman year figuring stuff out. And then by sophomore year was when I decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do. All right. So let's see. How do I do my presentation again? Oh, I see a question here of somebody wanting to go to Augusta. That's awesome. For prereqs and PA school, is it reasonable to expect to go to a particular school? We will definitely get into that in just a moment. Okay, cool. I'll have some QR codes throughout the presentation and we'll send links out tomorrow to this stuff. of some of the things I'm referring to. So if you miss something, that's okay. We'll make sure you have access to it. The main things that I want you to know about are maps, which I'm going to talk about, and how that can make your process easier, keeping track of what you're doing. And then our Cyber Monday deals for the PA platform are about to end. For you guys, I'll tell y'all a secret. I will keep them up just for y'all through the end of the week. So we're like, everyone else thinks they're closing, but I will keep them up for y'all. If you decide to join Pre-PA Academy, I would say that would be the main thing that would be helpful for y'all. We have essay edits and mock interviews on sale too, and a bigger package option, but Academy is our small group coaching. I actually think I see a couple people in the chat who are in Academy, and it's very similar to this, except for even a smaller group. And you guys get to be on video too, and we can really dive into stuff. We do 2 to 3 live sessions a week. We're actually, if you're here from Old Academy, we're switching to a new format and a new platform that will have a really awesome community aspect with a chat room where we can do live chat, a discussion board. Everything will be in one place. And I love that because I hate having to go to lots of different apps and stuff. But it'll be great. And we do a lot of teaching like this. We do office hours, live edits, live mock interviews, counseling, going through every part of the application. And then we are able to add this year more stuff about what to expect in PA school, some mental health stuff. It's really going to be a lot more comprehensive, which I'm very pumped about. And if you've already been in Academy, you can just roll right in. So don't worry about that. All right. Welcome, Alyssa from Michigan. Okay. So tonight we're talking about academic success, prereqs, and specifically just the coursework aspect of your PA school application. Some might argue this is the most boring part, and maybe it is, but it's also a very big make it or break it part of your application. I'll give you some examples as we go of some stories of people I've worked with and known that have run into some of these issues. So if you have applied in the past and gone through an application cycle, the question that I want you to ask yourself throughout this presentation is, could I have missed any of these things? Could this have been the reason I didn't get an interview or didn't get my application looked at? And we'll talk about how to review that. And then if you're earlier in the process, taking classes now, freshman, sophomore, I want you to think about the ones you have coming up and see if they are on track with setting yourself up to make your application stronger and to have everything you need when you push apply. Those are going to be our goals. All right, so what are we going to cover here? This is going to be, let me get my view over here set up. Yeah. So we're going to go through some different stuff. So we're going to talk about choosing PA programs, because that's actually the first step you should be doing. Choosing a major, planning your coursework, grades and GPA, and then study methods and how that plays into all of this. I put this QR code here. This links to our Cyber Monday deals. So if you want to screenshot that or take a picture, you can. And then, like I said, we'll send that out afterwards to y'all too. So the first step is researching PA programs. And I feel like this maybe doesn't always feel like the first step, because when you first start thinking about college and taking classes and undergrad or even going back, the first thing you probably think about is your major, is what I have to declare something. I have to pick a major that I want to do. And that's true. You do have to pick that. But you also, if PA school is the goal, you also need to be thinking about what that PA school wants. And if somebody wants to throw out somewhere they want to apply, I can go in a little bit and show y'all how to look for classes and what their requirements are and kind of show you my process there. But each school has different requirements. So if you plan your programs that are on your list, then you can make sure that your classes are fulfilling what those schools want. Okay, cool. I'm going to write those down. I saw a couple pop up. Shenandoah, and then Morehouse. Cool. Thank y'all for sharing. So yeah, so if we have our programs first, that gives us a little bit of direction. And that's what we're trying to get. We're trying to take this broad, this broad amount of classes that we could possibly take and narrow that down to making sure that we're focusing on the ones we need to. And one thing you may find with doing this is that you may have one school on your list of 10 that requires genetics. And then you have to make a decision about whether that one school is worth that class and worth the time, money, effort that you would have to put in to take that one class. This is something that one of our prior medical assistants at my office ran into as she was applying to schools, and she is in PA school now. She's actually about to come back and do a rotation with us, which is just really cool. But she ran into this problem of one school required genetics. And so that's why I use that example. And so she had to decide, do I take genetics or not for this one school? The other issue she ran into is she went to a quarter system and she only took 2 quarters of biochem, but they offered 3. And so some of the schools didn't count that. And so she had to decide, do I retake biochem for these programs that are requiring it? So there's so many facets to this decision making, and starting with that program list is a good place to start. So if we look at the requirements that schools can have that can vary, it's truly everything. Every single thing can vary. You could have 5 schools on your list and they will barely overlap in these different factors. So prereqs, and that can be the classes they accept and any alternate classes that fulfill a requirement, how many hours the class is, if it's on semester, quarter, if you have to take multiple, expiration dates, if they have to be within 5 years or a certain time frame, if they can be online or in person, if they have a lab, all of that can be part of this. And then completion is if you have them done at the time you apply, or versus matriculation, which is the time that you start at a program. So some schools will say, we will accept applications that have prerequisites in progress, but they have to be completed by December 2025. And so you have to pay attention to those things as well. And then there are other things like the experiences, patient care experience, healthcare experience, shadowing, volunteering, what counts. That's a whole nother webinar. We can do a webinar on that. We will definitely be covering that in Academy extensively. And we probably have some old YouTube videos on it if you want to look those up. We won't get into that quite as much tonight. And then there's standardized tests. They all require different stuff. One thing I want you to keep in mind as we start talking about courses that came up in an Instagram live I did today is the PA-CAT is knowledge-based. So that test in particular is going to be based on the prerequisite classes that are required for most PA programs. So as you're planning courses, as you're looking at stuff, if they require the PA-CAT, that's something that you want to keep in mind, that you will be tested on the specific subjects that the PA-CAT covers. So not only do these requirements vary, but they can change, and they can change at any point. Typically, they will change in between cycles. So usually after a deadline, they'll say, hey, for the next cycle, we want biostatistics and not statistics, or we're adding a requirement for biochem, whatever it is. So they can change. And so for that purpose, or for that reason, y'all have to check these things regularly. And I don't mean obsessively. There's a difference. So I would set yourself a reminder to maybe once a semester, once a quarter, just spend some time looking at websites, going through this stuff. And I'm about to show you some tools to make that easier as well. The program websites are going to be your best and most updated resource. We are doing our best on our end to keep things updated too. But if you are unsure, if you aren't able to tell from the website, if something's not clear about what's accepted, email the program. You can call them too, but email is going to be your best option to make sure there's a paper train there. Is it paper chain or paper train? I don't know. One of them. So that you can say if it came back up later, hey, I had this approved. They said that biostats would work for stats. And so if you can have that proof, it may come back later. There's always going to be an admissions email contact of some sort on every program website. to help you out. Just make sure you've done your due diligence in looking at the websites to double, triple check that there's no issue there. Okay, let's keep going. So this is one of the resources. This is on the PA platform, and this is the PA school program map. It has all the states, and as you go to each state, you'll see the contact info. So it has the program. You can click on it and go to the program website. Their email of the most recent admissions email address is on there. So that can help you have everything in one place versus looking around for it. So that's an option. If you just look up the PA platform program map or PA schools in Georgia, PA platform, it'll pop up, whatever you're looking for there. And then Mapped also has a school list. So we have spent a ton of time updating this list. And if you see any errors, please tell me. I'm sure there are some. But if you see any, please let us know. But this is an example of all the schools listed on, this isn't all, these are the ones I picked for my account. But you can essentially save and favorite schools. And this is a QR code that goes to Mapped. But you can save the schools, and then you can see the overview here of each school, of their information, of their prereqs. And I'll show you why that's important later. But this is another good place to go if you're researching schools. Again, always check the program websites or let us know if you see any errors. But you can use this QR code as well, and you'll get, I think it's 60 days of Mapped Pro for free, which is one-on-one chat advising with our pre-PA advisors, specifically Jordan, who's been with me for 9 years and is amazing. So that's a good thing to use too. If you are wanting some more one-on-one help, you can go that route. Okay, let's see. Keep going. All right. So when you're looking at schools, these are some things that you can consider outside of the coursework. Location, where you're wanting to be, the time that the program is, the length, if they have breaks, how long classes are, the academics, teaching style, resources, do they have cadavers, what's their pants pass rate, what do they offer you essentially? What's the investment? Private, public, program costs. So this is an interesting one right now because I've been waiting to see if more information would come out about this loan cap situation. And so far, there has not been any clarity. But for the loan caps, as of right now, the assumption is that PA will not be designated as a professional program, and loans could potentially be capped at a much, much lower rate than what they're offered at now, which could lead to some issues with getting funding for PA school. There are thoughts that maybe that could, bring the cost of PA school down. I feel like that would take, I don't know what that would take to do. I think that would take a lot to get that to actually happen. I think people would essentially just have to stop applying to schools for them to start bringing the cost down. So I went to a public program, and I was actually looking, and tuition there still is, it was Augusta University. I think it's around $7,500 a semester, which I don't want to speak out of turns. Let me double check the loan caps. It's I think it's $20,000. And I don't remember if it's per semester or per year. Let's see. So yeah, so it would be a total of $100,000 lifetime limit. And then, so the graduate programs would be capped at $20,500 a year. And then professional programs would be $50,000 a year, which there are some PA schools that cost more than $50,000 a year because we have 3 semesters and it can come out to that. So the $20,000 a year, $20,500 doesn't even cover 1 semester of tuition for some people. So not quite sure what's going to happen with that or when that decision will be official. I don't know if it's been said yet. I think there's a potential for an appeal, but there's been a lot of talk about what that's going to look like. Because pretty much everyone takes loans out to go to PA school. People don't just pay for PA school because that's crazy. If you can do that's awesome. But I think 1 person in my class didn't have loans that I know of out of 44 people. Okay, let's keep going here, or I might have skipped one there. Oh, the most important one. Do you meet the requirements? Do you meet the prereqs? But we'll get into that a little bit more later on. I think I need Kristen to come back on and do a finance one with us again and tell us about this loan situation. All right, so let's get into choosing a major. And so for some of y'all that have graduated and finished school, or you're a senior, this probably doesn't make sense. You're probably not wanting to change your major. But the one thing I would ask that you keep in mind is if you're pursuing the PA profession and you get into PA school and you become a PA, people are going to ask you about becoming a PA a lot. So that's one place where if somebody does come to you seeking advice, this could be something that you encourage them in, is to explore majors. Now for PA schools, major really doesn't matter. PA schools don't say you need a specific major to apply. They really don't care. They are looking at the courses you're taking and how well you do in them. So to make this process easier for yourself, it can be something that you enjoy, that you actually want to learn about. You can look and see what non-traditional options your school may offer. And then just double check the programs, but typically you're not going to see any preference there. So Brooke says, is it okay if I'm a biology major but taking some PA required classes? Yeah. And that's what I did. We'll get into that a little bit. Actually, I think that my slides is missing. Okay, let's just talk about that more then. Because I talk about community college here, and this is also usually fine. There are a few schools that'll differentiate and say it's not preferred, but most of the time, community college is fine, especially for taking random classes. I took classes at 3 different schools. I went to University of Georgia, Augusta University, and Augusta Tech. So I did take schools out of tech college that were online to help me graduate a little bit earlier. So I would just try to plan those things out. And that's when we get into planning, looking at summer classes or spreading classes out. Sometimes that will mean that you're taking classes somewhere else if it fits your schedule, if it fits your needs, if you think you could do better. And sometimes because it's cheaper, to be perfectly honest. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if we're talking about major though, I went into college thinking that I think I said this at the beginning, but I went in freshman year thinking that anyone who wants to do anything in medicine had to be a biology major. Both my parents are teachers. They were so great at encouraging me, but they didn't know anything about this path. My dad's the one who actually told me about being a PA, and really all they knew was that I was interested in science. But my dad went to a tech school. My mom went to a community college. They didn't really have that big university experience that I was having. And so that wasn't an area that they could guide me in. I'm also the oldest child. I didn't have siblings who could help me through that. So I feel like I was, figuring it out as I went. And so in college, like I said, I just was like, okay, I'll be a bio major. That's what you do. But looking back and after talking to a lot of people who have done different things, some schools have unique paths and majors that might serve you better than just choosing a traditional biology major. So in my bio major at UGA, the way it was set up was pretty much for med school. It got you the prereqs you needed for med school, which they don't require anatomy and physiology. So when I needed to take that and I went to my advisor, number one, they told me I didn't need it, which I'm like, that's the one thing that every school I'm applying to needs. You need anatomy and physiology. The other issue was that at UGA, it was such a high demand course for certain majors. So nursing needed it, kinesiology, and there were a couple others that they had to have it. And so there were no spots for me because they would get preference when schedules opened. So by the time I needed to apply, I could never get into it. And there'd be like one class and it just didn't work. So that became a problem. And then I had to take that at home over the summer. But the other part of this is looking back and things that I know now from both UGA and talking to people at other schools, there are some majors and paths that can get you not only more of the courses you need, but also experience. So some majors will include an internship or something where you are out in the field doing something. My roommate was a health promotions major with a public health focus. And so for 1 year, her job that she did was out in the field doing projects for a local hospice office, which I actually ended up volunteering with because of her. But they had a clinical track that I learned about later where you would actually get an entire semester of clinical experience. So I could have gotten my prereqs done and then had a semester where I was working clinically, getting patient care hours while I was getting academic credit. And while some schools won't accept hours that are for academic credit, the ones I was applying to would. And that would have been such a great way to double dip and make use of my time, my tuition, all of these things. But I didn't know, and I didn't take the time to research it. On the podcast recently, like a year ago, I had someone on there who did something similar at her program, and it was for some very specialized cardiology tech position that then after school, she went and got a great job before she started PA school. So you just don't know what all is out there. Even things like nursing might be a good option. My neighbor, or I keep saying my neighbor, my roommate who did health promotions ended up going to a 1-year master's program to get her BSN, RN, and a master's in nursing, which let her be in a leadership position. And now that's what she does. She's over the kids diabetic clinic at CHOG in Atlanta. So there are opportunities out there that you can optimize your schedule and your choices. So I would just say spend some time, if changing a major is something you're considering or you haven't picked one yet, spend some time looking at what the school has and maybe talking to some different people, talking to different advisors and seeing what might be the best option for you. Let's see. Oh, I see a question. Hold on. Let's see. How do I get out of that? Okay, I'm planning to apply for 2026. Due to working full-time, I can only take 1 to 2 courses each quarter or semester. I need microbiome lab and gen chem. Doesn't matter if I take microbiome first or gen chem first. If the semester ends on May 22nd after CASP opens, which is what I'm concerned about. Okay, we're about to get to some more timeline stuff. And then I graduated with my bachelor's in 2019. I took dual credit biology and chemistry in high school. Okay. A lot of the schools I'm looking at say prereqs need to be at least 10 years old. Do you think that would be okay, or would I most likely need to retake them? Okay. So the expiration dates on courses are usually from when you took them, when you started them. So I would say for those, you would probably at this point have to retake them for when you would submit your application if you're submitting next year. Okay. Now we're really getting into it. I'm sorry if this is so boring too. You're probably like, I don't want to talk about classes this much. Okay. So when you're looking at a program website, these are some of the terms you'll see that you need to understand to make sure you're picking the right stuff. So prerequisites mean that they are required courses. You have to have them for your application to be considered and looked at. Recommended classes mean it's nice if you have it, but not an ultimate deal breaker if you don't. I will say in my mind, when I'm counseling, I tend to consider recommended courses as required courses. You need to try to take it if you can. If you're taking anything extra, if you have room for electives, try to make it those recommended courses. And then other sciences can be used to boost your science GPA and your overall GPA. There aren't a ton of places in your PA school application where you can double dip, but this is one of them. Because if you're strategically choosing classes that fulfill your science GPA and you're doing well, that's going to boost everything. And there's not that many ways to do that. And then you'll have your other stuff, your core classes, electives, stuff you have to take just for school. And again, we want it to all be for a purpose and do as well as you can, but those classes aren't going to matter as much to the schools. As we get into grades, if you get a C in political science, I'm probably not going to tell you to repeat that. Whereas if you get a C in organic 1 and that's required, I'm probably going to tell you to retake that. All right, so if we're looking at prereqs and what's most common, and again, varies by program, disclaimer there, these are the ones that you'll usually see. So biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, microbiology, psych, statistics and or biostatistics, anatomy, physiology. Those can also sometimes be combined to anatomy and physiology, but both parts. And then sometimes you'll see genetics or medical terminology. Other things you might see, abnormal psych. I've seen a few that have like health and development classes on there. Sometimes nutrition, not as common. Physics is a rare one too. So there can be some off the wall required ones, but these are the ones that you're usually want to kind of have on your radar. And I don't know why that says psychiatry. It should definitely say psychology, not psychiatry. Okay, so things that we want to consider when we're looking at courses and choosing them. Expiration dates, which I think is what Mariah asked about. So this is from when they were taken. And usually the expiration dates, if they have them, are on prereqs. They can be 5 years, 10 years. Those are going to be the most common that you'll see, and that you may have to retake those classes. You need to look at the hours. If you are at a school with quarter, that's on the quarter system. I saw a few people in California and some schools out there tend to do quarter. There is a conversion rate from quarter to semester hours. You need to do that conversion because if a school says they want 3 semester hours, a quarter to a semester, it's 1.667 hours. So it's not enough. So you might need 2 quarters or 3 quarters to get enough hours to equal that semester. And that can change how you need to take stuff, what you need to take. Maybe that changes where you take it and you decide to go somewhere that's on semester for the summer to get that course completed. That is definitely something that trips people up every year. We want to focus on schools or focus on classes for science majors. Usually schools are wanting to see higher level courses. So if there is an option of like lower entry level course versus a 4 science majors course, choose the 4 science majors. That's usually what the schools are wanting to see. And we want to make it count. We want them to accept that class. And then if you're not sure if it counts, ask the program before you sign up. I really don't want anyone to get in a situation where they like assume something counts and then find out that it doesn't. And unfortunately, that happens every year. So you cannot assume that biostats counts for stats. We cannot assume that abnormal psych counts for psych. Those are very common ones. We can't assume that any specialized biology, cellular biology counts for general biology. Those will potentially get your application thrown out if they are not what the schools are looking for. So we can't assume, we have to ask, we have to get clarification if it's not clear on the course website. Okay, let's see. I see a question here. I'm taking courses online through UMass Global, and I'm nervous they won't accept them for not being in-person classes. I've emailed the university I want to go to, and they email me saying as long as they are accredited, but CASPA is the one I'm nervous about. I've tried putting the courses through MAP, and the university doesn't come out, so how would I 100% make sure CASPA doesn't respond? So make sure you've submitted a request in MAP to get the courses added. So if your university isn't in there when you're trying to add courses, request it and they'll get added in. Let me look up their accreditation. Hold on. Sorry, I'm real readiness for a minute. Global accreditation. Yeah, so it's a regionally accredited body. So that should be fine. So the ones you don't want is national accreditation. Those are sometimes not recognized by schools for prerequisite courses. But yeah, it's regionally accredited if they say it's fine. But don't worry about CASPA. CASPA is just the universal application. So like you could go on there now and make an account. I saw that question too. You can make an account at any time and kind of play with it and put stuff in and just see where it falls. You will not see your GPAs until you've submitted to a program. But that is a good, yeah, I would just go on and see if you can add them, but you should be able to add them fine. A lot of transcripts and CASPA won't necessarily say it's online, but I wouldn't play with that. Like, I wouldn't try to get anything past them. Or I don't know. If school doesn't accept online, I wouldn't try to trick them. That would not be good. Okay. Let me go back to, okay, here we go. All right, so AP credits. And somebody mentioned dual enrollment. So dual enrollment, where you got a college grade from a university and it's on your transcript, is fine. AP credits are a little trickier because most schools are not going to accept AP credits for prerequisites. They might accept things like English or other random classes, like they don't care about those. But if it's a prereq or especially a science class, they often want to see a grade. If a school does accept AP credits, they need to be shown on your transcript. It cannot just say AP credit 6 hours. It needs to say AP Bio 3 hours, AP Psych 3 hours. And they need to be line itemized for the schools to see that. Otherwise, they have no other way of knowing. You can't send AP credits to CASPA or to a PA school. It has to be on your transcript. So if you're early in the stages and you are still taking these classes or you're in high school, plan this out so that you're taking the ones that would lighten your load later on. So things like political science, AP history, English, all that stuff. Things that would just make it more simple for you later on. This is where I have another story from that same medical assistant who's in PA school. She started our office and she'd applied one cycle and she was in the middle of a second cycle when she started. And she didn't get in that cycle, didn't get any interviews. So we spent some time looking at her application. And then her third cycle is when she applied and got in. But what we found were a couple things. There was the quarter issue, which was one of schools not accepting her biochem. And then she was missing some prereqs. So she was missing the genetics and had to decide what to do about that. And then the third issue we found was AP credits. So she had taken AP Psych and was under the impression, assuming that the schools were accepting that. But when we looked at her transcript, it just said AP credit and it did not say AP Psych. So she was not getting credit for that class and it was getting her application thrown out because it looked like she hadn't taken it at all. So she did end up going back and retaking that online to get the credit. So that's one option. Another option would be if you take classes at multiple schools, if you can send your AP credit to a different school that will show it on the transcript, you could potentially have it on there. So your school's not going to change how they do transcripts, but if you do go to different schools, you may want to just send that AP credit there too and see if it looks different on that transcript and use that. So that's an option. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Come on. Sorry, I was trying to switch slides. Maybe. Okay, there we go. So I know I've seen some questions. I'm going to try to, we're only like halfway the slides, so I'm going to try to keep going through them so that I can show some stuff. Let's talk about science versus non-science coursework. This is where you have the most strategy when it comes to your application, and it comes to the GPAs. GPAs are important. Science GPAs are important. So the better you can do here with making choices that are going to impact both your science and your overall GPA is a very wise thing to do. And the options are vast. So this could be at the school you go to, this could be at different schools, but I'll show you the list here. This is from the CASPA FAQ list of course subjects. And all of these classes fit for science. And so that's something to keep in mind. Like it goes by, I'll show you this, but it goes by the title first and then it goes by subject. So you want to look for classes with these phrases in the title. And there's some interesting ones in here. I think some of my like public health counts don't know if I have a pointer and that's small for me, but I'm looking at it bigger over here. So public health is one. CPR, if your school offers a CPR class that you can get course credit for, not a random one through Red Cross, that's an option that will get you some credit. Health services, health science, just health, first aid, food science, nutrition's on here somewhere, dietetics, earth science. There can be some really interesting classes on here. It may just take some time of going through your course catalog and seeing what classes would fit some of these categories here. So if we look at how this works, I love assigning courses. I have a video on YouTube if you want to go watch it where I go through a bunch of these. And yeah, this is one of my favorite things to kind of tease out and help people with. And this is something we definitely do in Academy a lot. So you're going to go by the title first. So if we have Psych 560, how do I get a pointer? Can I? No? Okay. If you have Psych 560 and it's called biodiversity, if we look at biodiversity, that is on the CASPA list as science, not as psych. So this would be considered a science class. Let's say this class was Bio 560, psychology of diversity in biology, whatever. You might could categorize it as biology, but if it has that psychology in the title, it may be a psych class and not considered science. So this is one, most psych classes are not going to be science. Psych messes everybody up. It is not science considered by CASPA, but you have to look at the title, because if you're taking a class that's in biology, assuming it's going to count, but let's say it's called psych, it's not going to count. So definitely use that course subject list, double check it, make sure that those classes are fitting in your science GPA for sure. And that's something in MAPT too. I'll show y'all MAPT stuff in a minute, but make sure you're assigning your courses correctly in there. I've seen some people say their GPAs aren't accurate, but it's whenever we check in the advising aspect of it, it's almost always user error of not assigning courses correctly, which is fine. I don't completely expect everyone to know how to do that. But if you have questions about it, definitely reach out so that we can look at it and make sure everything's in there correctly. All right, let's get into grades. I don't really like talking about grades for PA school, but I do think it's important. How important is it? It depends on the school and what they look at, how holistic they are, but ultimately they are important. Schools are choosing prereqs and choosing courses that they feel are important for you to master before you get to PA school, so that then you can have a good understanding of the material once you get there. So they're putting thought behind this. They're not just doing it to make you do stuff. They truly want you to make sure certain things before you get there, because there's not a lot of review. You jump in to the material. I have this picture on the next slide, which is drinking out of a fire hydrant. You'll hear this phrase so much in regards to PA school. They say it all the time. I actually had a friend who went to PA school. She worked with me as a medical assistant for 5 years and then went to PA school. And I remember during orientation, she called me because she had to drive back and forth. And she was like, if I hear this drinking out of a fire hydrant one more time, I'm going to scream. I can't believe they keep saying this. It's driving me crazy, whatever. And then a month in, she was like, I get it. She texted me. She was, I understand now. They were right. That is the best description. I completely took it back. It's a lot. It just is a ton of information coming at you really quickly. I think I saw a question in the chat about that. You're in class a lot more than you're in class during undergrad, usually kind of 8 to 5-ish, maybe a half day here or there, but you're in class a lot. You're getting a lot of info. You're getting tests all the time. One of our TAs in Academy is in PA school now, and I know she shares often hey, we have 3 tests this week, or we have this going on. And so, especially if you've never worked a full-time job, I think that can be a hard adjustment. I think the people who adjusted a little bit better or quicker were the ones who came from a job into PA school versus straight from undergrad. Like myself, it was just a lot. And you're kind of when am I supposed to study? I'm in class all day long. And you just have to figure that out as you go. So unfortunately, you do need to expect a struggle and expect an adjustment period once you start PA school of figuring it out and figuring out how you study, what resources you want to use. People have done it before you, and I truly believe if you can get into PA school, you are capable of handling the material and the amount of material. It is a lot, but they put you through these classes ahead of time to help prepare you for that. And yes, you have a little bit more say in your schedule ahead of time of strategically making sure you're not taking all of your hard classes all at once. But PA school tries to do that too. I do think they try to put classes together that aren't going to completely overwhelm you as much as they can. But you'll have weeks and semesters and periods where you feel like it's not worth it or you're not going to make it through that time and be able to continue PA school, but you can and you will. And this happens every year, and it's definitely has some tough times in that period of time, but it goes by quickly. It flies by, actually. It's weird because it flies by, but then also I'm at a period of my life where I guess I'm really old and it feels like it was yesterday. Like I still remember things very vividly that feel like they just happened, even though I've been a PA for 10 years. So it's such a weird time. And I put these things here just to share. So number one, I got a C+ in organic chemistry 2. I do need to admit that I cried after every single test we had. It was at UGA. Our tests were at 7 p.m., which makes no sense. Who is good at test taking at 7 p.m., especially when you've had all day to worry about it? That was terrible. And they would split us up into different places based on our last name. And my then boyfriend, who now I'm married to, was in all my classes with me, and he would take it in one area and I would take it in another area. And after every test, I would call him sobbing about how I failed and they were going to hopefully curb it. And he'd be like, hey, I think I did really good. And then he would do really well. So that just shows how we were very different. And I would have probably done better in a project-based major such as public health or health promotions. But yeah, that was rough. Gen Chem was rough. Definitely failed some stuff there. Got curves. Physics was rough. But then getting to PA school, we had 3 anatomy tests. And so you knew that you had to do well on them. And my first one, I got a C, like barely a passing C. We had to have a 75 to pass, and I think I got a 76. So that led to a lot of freaking out, a lot of figuring out what I was going to do. And this is where we'll get into talking about study methods a little bit, because I was a note taker where I would love to write everything down. And what you find in PA school is you don't have time for that. It just doesn't work. You can't do it. And I learned that very quickly. And then that same semester, I failed my first pharmacology test, had to go do remediation, had to go talk to my advisor and remediate. I never had any exposure to pharmacology. Our teacher, Dr. Maynard, was so hard. And I just didn't know what to do or how to study or what to study. And so found my resources, got back on track, spent a lot of time at whiteboards during didactic year to try to learn pharmacology. But yeah, it's hard. Like you will have struggles and challenges in PA school and probably beforehand. All right. So as we continue talking about grades, sorry for my little walk down memory lane. So on your transcripts, every course counts. So if you repeat a course, if you were dual enrolled, if you took organic 10 times, every single attempt is going to count. So that is important to keep in mind as you are taking classes, is when you're planning your schedule and you're trying to balance everything. I saw somebody ask about when to get patient care experience. Make your coursework and your grades first priority. It's much easier to take a gap year or take a little time and get more experience later on than it is to repair a GPA. So ideally, you are focusing on grades, focusing on the school part, and then getting the experience as you can on top of that. Sorry, guys, I think I'm losing my voice here. Okay, here we go. Oh, I'm going to head too far. Hold on. Okay, there it goes. So this is a list of the GPAs that CASPA calculates, and it's a lot of them. There's a lot of GPAs here. I'll give you a second there while I take a sip of water. So the main ones that the schools are looking for are this overall that has a star beside it and the overall science. Some schools have started looking at a BCP. That's your biology, chemistry, and physics, and only the classes that fall under those categories. There's a list of them on the CASPA core subjects list, but that leaves out a lot of the things that you do need for PA school. But you can see different subjects here and what their GPAs are. You can see every year is broken down, every year science broken down, and then every year non-science broken down. So it shows trends very nicely where you can see the differences in each year, but you will not see these GPAs until after you submit your application. So we talked about MAPT a little bit, and it sounds like some of y'all have used it. So MAPT can estimate your GPAs. You do need to make sure those course assignments are correct, but this is what it will look like. If you have your GPAs in it, you'll see these trends where you can see how you've done with your cumulative and your science GPAs as you go. This is just, I've entered in random classes. And then most recently, we have updated so that you can see your prereq completion. So as you enter courses and assign the prereqs and assign the science stuff, you can see how close you are. So if I'm looking at this list, I might be like, okay, I'm on track for Campbell University, but I don't know if I want to apply to Duke. Like, I need to see what else they need, because do I really want to take extra stuff if it's not required across the board here? So that helps you to make sure you're on track. And I would recommend updating MAPT at the end of each semester at the minimum. You can also enter your experience in there and keep track of that. So that's another good way to use MAPT to make sure, again, you're just staying on track as you go. Someone asked, is it important that I take physics? Only if it's required for a program that you're applying to, which most of them don't. It does help with science, but most schools now do not require physics. I do want to give you reassurance that a bad grade or even a semester will not ruin your chances. I have seen thousands of applications, and I've seen ones that I am honestly surprised they got interviews that have a lot of C's, D's, F's, withdrawals, grades that are not great, but they show upward trends. They come back, they improve them. You can tell that they've worked really hard despite whatever that situation was. And they're getting interviews and they're getting acceptances. So do I want you to do as well as possible? Yes. Do I want you to give up if you get a rough patch? No. I want you to keep going, figure out what the problem is, correct it, but don't obsess over it. Figure it out, move on. You do want to show your ability to succeed academically, but things are going to happen. Be able to explain what happened, why, what you learned from it, what you took away, and be able to communicate that to the programs. And I mentioned withdrawals just now. If you are in school currently and taking classes and you find yourself in a situation of deciding, do I withdraw from this course that I don't think I'm going to do well in, or do I accept a bad grade? And what's a bad grade? Most schools in prereqs want a C+ or higher. Preferably a B or higher would be great, but if you have a couple C's, that's probably okay. But anyway, you want to meet the minimum required grade for each course. So if you have the option of taking a withdrawal versus a CDF, I would take the withdrawal, because that will not affect your GPA unless it's a withdrawal fail. A WF will count as an F. So if it's after the deadline or whatever your school's policy is, you would want to continue to complete that course and not just take the F. But I think a withdrawal shows a level of maturity that you have the self-awareness to realize you're struggling and make a choice to prioritize whatever you need to in the moment. Be able to explain why you withdrew, but I wouldn't fret over a withdrawal too much. What are credit hours on MAPT? How do I find that? So when you enter your courses, you'll enter how many credit hours a class was, and it will automatically adjust for quarter or semester, so you don't have to worry about that part of it. Okay. Another question that comes up a lot when it comes to courses or even choosing schools is, does plus or minus matter? If a school, should I choose a school that does plus minus on transcripts or one that doesn't? Does it matter? I think it evens out. CASPA does take this into account. So if you go to a school that has plus minus on your transcript, that's how it'll be. And you can see the CASPA grade equivalency charts for that. But I do think it evens out. I haven't done like a straight comparison. Maybe I should, of a transcript with plus and minus and one that is just regular to see if the GPAs come out the same. That would be really interesting. But I think they probably do. But those GPAs are weighted a little bit differently. I just want to show y'all, this is the CASPA FAQ guidelines. And so this is where you'll find tons of answers to all this stuff. A lot of what I've shown you with just all of the resources, the core subjects, questions. If y'all have any questions, like that's where I'm going to look, and that's where you're going to get the best answers if you do have anything like that. Okay, let me see here. Okay. So I have some stuff about studying in here. I don't want to keep y'all too long. And to be perfectly honest, I'm in my daughter's bedroom right now because we're doing some housework. So I do want to put her to bed fairly soon. Academic learning style. My main point with this is just that I think it's important if you can learn what your learning style is and be able to adapt it and adjust it fairly quickly. So these are some ways to do that. So if you look up the VARC learning test, it will help you identify which of these methods you identify with the most: visual, oral, read, write, or kinesthetic. I am definitely read, write, maybe visual a little bit, but definitely read, write. If you tell me something, I probably am not going to follow it very well. I am not a group studier at all. That's not for me. I just need to see it and write it, and that helps me remember. So in PA school, I would make study guides, but then I wouldn't actually really use them. My classmates would. It was a very weird thing, but I would just need to get all the information out and organize it and put it together. And that process of doing it is what helped me to learn it. And then I would do application questions. So maybe that's a little bit of kinesthetic, but I would do practice questions to make sure that knowledge was solidified. So these are some study techniques that you may have tried or want to try. Repetition was great for me. So somebody asked, how did you overcome note taking? I had to switch from handwriting to typing. That was a big one. I was used to just handwriting stuff, and I definitely had to switch to typing it out. And then I would record myself. So even though I said I'm not oral, I would record myself. So I think the act of saying it was helpful. And then I don't think this helped, but I did anyway. And then I would listen to it as I was driving back and forth to school. I had to drive about 25 minutes. So I would listen to it, and then I would listen to it as I fell asleep. Again, this is definitely, that's overkill. I don't think that helped. But yeah, so I would do a lot of making the study guides, typing them out. And then the practice questions were the biggest thing for me. I think one of the biggest shifts was I was used to getting by memorizing stuff in undergrad and then forgetting it. But then you did have to truly comprehend it and understand it in PA school and put a bunch of concepts together. And so doing the practice questions helped me to do that more. And I wish that was a skill that I had focused on more in undergrad. Looking back, I think I would have done better and been less stressed if I had focused on learning the material instead of just stressing about needing to study. I think I spent more time doing that than actually studying. And so hindsight's 2020, and I don't know if I could have changed it, but sometimes I'll get a little thing of maybe I should take organic chemistry again and see how I do this time if I'm not stressed out about it. I'm not going to do that. That's dumb. But in my head, I'm like, I was too anxious about everything to really try to understand that material. So I asked, would you recommend Anki and the Anki remote? I know med students use it, but not sure it'd help for PA students. I think I've seen some PA students mention it. It's after my time, but yeah, I think that could be a good option. We used to have just Quizlet, I think that's similar, but it looks pretty cool. So yeah, that could be something helpful. The other thing I want to emphasize is just right now, before you're in PA school, I would also try to work on healthy routines. So whatever that looks like for you, good sleep, eating well, exercise, hobbies, interest. Some of that will go away in PA school. I'll be honest. Like, you'll find that you lose part of yourself there just being so engrossed in school. But I think if you have good habits ahead of time, that helps to set yourself up for success. I did not at all. And I found very quickly that staying up late and skipping meals wasn't serving me. That would actually, I think, make me worse. And once I started focusing on prioritizing just normal life things, I actually started doing better. So I was living at home my first year of PA school. I got married after the first year, but I was living at home, and my parents would be like, hey, let's go grab dinner. They're going to a restaurant up the street. It's going to take 30 minutes. And I'd be like, no, I have to study. But what I realized, it clicked one day, was, is that 30 minutes where I need to eat dinner anyway? They're going to bring me home dinner and then I'm going to eat it here. Is that 30 minutes, that break, is that going to be the difference in me passing this test? Is that the difference in a 70 and a 90? Or is that the difference in a 90 and a 92? Maybe one question or two questions. It's really not that big of a deal. And by taking breaks, I actually started doing better. I had a friend in PA school who was a college athlete, and she was really great about being like, we're going to the gym. She's going to run a mile in 8 minutes or whatever. I was like, I'll walk around the track and do 30 seconds of plank while you do like a 5-minute one. But even though I'm not athletic and was not super into that, I appreciated her pushing me to take a break and to just move, because we're sitting in a freezing classroom for 8 hours. So even going for 30 minutes to the gym was definitely, I don't know, like a good thing for me, even when I didn't want to do it. So finding those things for yourself can also be helpful. And then I mentioned this before, but if something isn't working, you need to change it. And recognizing that now before you get to PA school will serve you once you get there. And that will happen. You'll have different classes, different teachers, different lecture styles, and you'll need to change stuff. And you'll need that self-awareness to do that quickly. All right, I put our Instagram here, and then the QR code, I think that one goes to the Cyber Monday stuff again. We have a winner. So when you signed up, you probably saw that we are giving away a spot in our new academy. So the lifetime membership, and I was told that's going to Elise Crotty. Tell me if I said that wrong, but we'll email you with details. That's going to officially start in January. So we'll get started with that soon. Hopefully this was helpful and not just information overload. We're starting to look at and plan webinars and things for the new year. So if there's something you would like to see, something that we can talk about more or need to cover, please let me know, and we'll make sure we try to focus on that. But thank you all again for spending time here. I know y'all are busy, and I, again, hope this was helpful. But if you have any questions, you know where to find us, and definitely let me know if anything comes up. So hope y'all have a good week.